How's it going, everybody? So I don't know how many of you guys are still in high school, and if you can believe it, I went to school once. School for me, ever since elementary school, was more of a social thing than it was about learning. Don't get me wrong, I always did pretty good in my classes, but it was really never about the curriculum more so than being able to hang out with a bunch of people, make new friends, and have a good time with my teachers. I always found in school that when the teacher likes you, you're generally going to have a much easier time. And this is actually really good advice for those of you out there who are rebellious kids and you want to oppress the system, down with the man. That's like fine and good. But if you're good with your teachers and you end up on like really good terms with them, your school life is just going to be easier. And I have a few stories about some of my favorite teachers back in high school. The first story is actually not so much of a story and just this really weird coincidence that followed me ever since middle school onward. And it was that all of my science teachers got pregnant. Every single one of them. Now you may be sitting there wondering, okay, so all of your science teachers were women then? And that's not exactly the case. Here's the situation here. 6th grade, my science teacher, Miss Euster, gets pregnant. 7th grade, my science teacher, Mrs. Couch, gets pregnant. 8th grade, I had a male science teacher by the name of Mr. Stoner. His wife got pregnant. 9th grade, my science teacher, Miss Brownsberger, gets pregnant. 10th grade, my favorite science teacher that I ever had, Miss Newton, gets pregnant. 11th grade, I had a chemistry teacher named Mr. Grady, and his wife got pregnant. Now, 12th grade, I didn't have a science class. At my school, you only had to do 3 years of science, and I was like, screw it. So I didn't actually do a 4th year, so I replaced that class with a Spanish class. And my Spanish teacher got pregnant. Once I noticed this pattern was happening, it was actually very easy for me to predict which teachers were going to get pregnant because I was just like, okay, well, next year, my next science teacher is going to get pregnant. I would say that to my friends, and then they would sit there and be like, Barry, how do you know that? Are you getting all these women pregnant? And I'm sitting there like, no, I don't know why it's happening. It's just happening. For a little bit there, I was like, okay, I guess I have some Mary Mother of Jesus powers, and I'm just like impregnating people with the power of God here or something. So that was weird, but definitely not as weird as this. And this is where we move into our first story. So back in 9th grade, I'd just gotten into high school. This means I was a freshman, I was the new kid on the block, and generally you're going to get picked on just because you're one of the new kids. Either way, I had this history teacher named Mr. Herning, and I really liked him. He was super cool. He was really fit. He was also the soccer coach, and there were a lot of girls who were super into this guy. He was just really well-rounded, super down-to-earth, and very easy to talk to. If you ever had any issues, you could just walk up to him and be like, yeah, let me help you out with that. You know, I love those teachers who are just always interested in helping out. But this one day, I'm pulled out of my math class. I had math in my 3rd period of every day, and I loved being pulled out of my math class, but I wasn't exactly sure why. This lady comes into the room, calls my name, pulls me out of class, walks me down the hallway, and then I'm sat in this little room. There's a counselor and like 7 other students just sitting in there. I sit down in a chair and I'm still confused as hell. What in the world is going on? And I hear this counselor is talking to these students, and it's a group counseling session. So I sat there for a little bit, still kind of confused after I'd realized what is going on, and the lady introduced the class and herself. She said, hey, Barry, you're Barry, right? And I was like, yeah. She goes, okay, so every day we're going to pull you out of math, which was awesome for me. You're going to come to this class, and we're going to have some group counseling with your fellow students here. And I was sitting there like, why? She goes, well, one of your teachers has a suspicion that you might be depressed. Now, this is great because I was definitely one of the happiest, one of the loudest, one of the most extroverted kids in the entire school. Like, everyone knew who I was. So I was sitting there like, I'm depressed, huh? Okay, you know what? I'm going to milk this because I'm getting out of math. I'll be depressed. That's fine. So I'm sitting there in the class with these kids for a few days, and they're kind of talking about problems they're having at home. They're talking about the issues that they face, how they're having trouble with their schoolwork and stuff like that. And I couldn't really relate to it too much. Like, my mother and father had gotten a divorce a couple years earlier, and I would kind of touch into that. You know, I was like, yeah, I have a separated family. Life's kind of fine, you know? Like, there's not a problem here, you know? You kind of just take the punches and keep going, but I didn't exactly even know how to play sad because I just wasn't. So the third day of this class rolls around, and this counselor is going around the circle asking each one of us, what do you do to get away and not think about these darker thoughts that you have? What is it, tell me about your happy place. And a lot of the kids were like, well, I get home from school, I do my homework, and then I watch some TV, or I'll play some video games, or, every so often I'll read, or I'll go on runs, hang out with friends, stuff like that. Well, they get to me, and I was gonna dick around. So I sat back with a serious face, and I said, so this is gonna sound a little bit strange, but what I do is I live out in the woods, so to feel really at peace and really calm and harmonious with nature, I spread peanut butter and honey across my body, and then I go lay in the woods and let little animals run up to me and lick it off. The kids in the class are hearing this and they're like, what an idiot. And the lady who's sitting there, the counselor, she looks at me and she goes, you don't need this class. You can go back to math. And I was a little torn at that point because I was like, shit, damn it. I missed my out, because I was still getting credit for math being in that class, and I was like, shoot, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I don't know, it was fun. This next story happened my junior year, and this was one of my favorite teachers. I mentioned her before. Her name was Miss Newton, and she was my science teacher. I really loved Miss Newton because she was so fun. She was always so happy. Like, I'd walk into the class, and I was that kid, I'd walk into the class and I'd just start singing. Why do you build me a buttercup baby just to let me down? And then as I'm walking in the class, she would start singing along with me, and we just would do that. It was really cool. You ever have one of those teachers that likes you and just because of that you get good grades in their class? That was this situation. So I didn't exactly have to try. I still did, but I didn't have to. And this is one reason that I say, get a good damn relationship with your teachers. I swear to God, dude, you're just gonna win. Either way, this one segment of the year, we were doing this project on this book called The Hot Zone, which if you don't know about this book, I don't remember who it's written by, but it's about Ebola and this Ebola outbreak that happened back in the day. And what we were supposed to do was read through the entire book, and then we make a 7-page synopsis on this thing. And then 3 pages at the very end had to be our sources. The title, the cover page of the book had to actually be drawn she said that you couldn't just copy and paste something on Google. You had to make the cover art yourself. We had about 3 or so weeks to do this project, and this was a really big project. It was worth a lot of our grade, so it was really important to get it done. Now, one of the other rules was you can either work alone or you can work with partners, but there was an odd number of people in the class, and because I didn't really know some of these other kids, I didn't really know what their work ethic was like. I was just like, I'm gonna do this by myself and just work alone. So this one day, we're sitting in class, and I'm sitting there on MS Paint, mind you, making the cover art, and it was the most trash thing you've ever seen. It was this monkey eating a banana, and the monkey had X's on his eyes, and he was drooling because Ebola had taken him over, and then there was an MS Paint plane in the background crashing, and that was it. And I know that you're probably thinking of an image in your head, and it probably looks better than what I made. I swear to God, this was stick lines, and it was garbage, okay? So I spent about a day working on that, and there were a couple points where Miss Newton walked up, and she's like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know how to use Photoshop, so I'm just trying with this. I want to make it better, but my cover art might not be very good. And she's like, no, that's okay. The cover art's not the most important bit. Just make sure you do the research. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm like halfway through the book. I was not halfway through the book. I didn't even open it. I actually think by the end of the project, I read maybe 1 or 2 chapters. So 3 weeks goes by, and I basically did no work at all. Like I said, I didn't read very much of the book. I had written about maybe a page and then a paragraph of stuff, and it wasn't great. And then I had 3 pages of sources that I was going to use to finish the project up. And I don't remember why I didn't finish, because generally I did. I may have gotten sick and just was like, screw this, I don't care. But either way, I walk in one day and I turn it into her and I go sit back down. And then a week later, we get our papers back. Now, I had 2 friends in the same class, Nick and Gage, and they worked on the project together. Well, a week later, we get our pages back, and I got a B. I'm sitting there looking at it like, why in the hell? Why would you give me a B? Like, I don't deserve this. This is bad. This is like an F. I go to my 2 friends, and my buddy Nick got a B+. The friend that he was working with, Gage, they worked on the same project. Gage got a D. I'm sitting there looking at it like, what? Did she mess up our grades or something? There's no way you got a D. And he's like, I know. And he looks at my paper and he's like, what is this? I was like, yeah, I didn't even try. So we walk up to the teacher's desk, and Gage throws his paper down on her desk, and he's like, why did I get a D? What is this? And she said, well, look, I know you and Nick worked together on this project, but I just had a feeling that Nick did most of the work. He was flabbergasted. He was just like, he couldn't say anything back. And he walked back to his desk, and he sat down all like upset. And the thing was, Gage did kind of share the work, so I don't know what that was all about. But I walk up to her and I said, hey, I really appreciate the grade. It's cool you gave me a B, but I feel like I don't deserve it, you know? I didn't really do the work, even compared to Nick and Gage, compared to the other kids in class. I didn't do a lot of the work, and it's evident, you know? Look at my MS Paint shit. This is terrible. She looks at me and she goes, Barry, I know you didn't do the project, but I saw your sources, and I knew you really did read that book. And I know you really did intend on making a really great paper. So it was the effort that I saw. That's what gave you that grade. I walk back and I'm like, damn right, dude. Yeah. This next story concerns my health teacher. I think this was also either my junior or sophomore year, but I can't really remember. But I had this health class. Now, Mr. Hega was a really laid back, super cool teacher. He actually was the kind of guy who would bring these little marshmallows in class, and if kids were being disruptive or if they were nodding off, he would pick up a marshmallow and chuck it at them. And he would just start doing that. Well, there were days that I'd get disruptive. I have a lot of energy, and he would start chucking the marshmallows at me, and I would go to grab them with my mouth, and there were a couple times where I caught them. So it was this fun little game between he and I where he would randomly grab a marshmallow and chuck it up into the air, and then I'd catch it. And we would do that every so often. I actually got away with a lot of stuff in class, and again, it's because these teachers liked me. I swear to God, get on their good side. But there was this one day where Mr. Hega had spent a few weeks grading everyone's papers, and not just from my class, from all the classes he had, and they were on a nice, neat stack up on his desk. Well, I pissed off a friend of mine, my buddy Logan, and he's chasing me around the room because he was angry at me. So I grabbed these papers, threw them up in the air, and I yelled, distraction! And the papers just went everywhere. And and Mr. Hega is like, dude, you have to pick that up. And I was like, okay, I know, I'm sorry. But I didn't get in trouble for that. I just had to pick it up. Now, the funniest thing was the apple prank. So Mr. Hega was a health teacher, and I made jokes because I knew he didn't like apples. That was actually his least favorite fruit. I'm not sure why he told us that, but I was like, dude, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, man. Like, why do you hate apples? And he's like, I'm not interested. I don't want them. So this one day in class, I walk in and I had an apple. And I walk up to his desk and I was like, hey, I wanted you to have this. And he scoffs at me and he's like, yeah, all right. And he throws it in the trash. Well, he gets up and he starts writing on the board, and I walk over to the trash sneakily, and I grab it, and I pick it up, and I put it on his desk, and I walk back to my desk. And he turns around, and eventually he notices it, and he laughs, and everyone leaves the class, and then he threw it away again. Well, at lunchtime that day, I walked into his classroom, and I took the apple out of his trash can. I found him walking around the school, and I said, hey, Mr. Hega, I think you dropped this. And he looks at it, and he's just like, oh my God. Every so often, whenever I'd get an apple at school, either from a friend or from the cafeteria, whatever, I would go and I'd sneak into his office and I would set it down on his desk and I would write a little note that says, I think you lost this. And it always ended up in his trash. The funniest part about this was one day, it was the last day of school, I'm signing yearbooks, I'm saying goodbye to everybody, I'm telling my teachers I'll see them next year, and I walked up to Mr. Hega and I was saying goodbye. Well, there comes a point, I don't even know how he did this, but I get home and I unzip my backpack to take everything out, and there was an apple in my backpack, and it was definitely from him. I just knew it. I know public school is an indoctrination tactic in order to stick us into the capitalist society, but I had a lot of fun back in high school. There are some people who will teach you a lot without even realizing it, and it's not just the curriculum. Some of these people are going to stick with you for the rest of your life. I know I said this enough, but if you're not having a good time in school, try to find ways to make it fun. It's okay to be a little rebellious, so long as you're not being hateful about it. Be playful. The teachers will see it. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.